Hello and welcome to the 8-man hard mode Olok The Shadow boss fight guide. My name's Hayete, and today I'll be showing you everything you need to know to successfully defeat the 5th boss in the Scum and Villainy operation. This fight can be successfully defeated using any class composition following the standard 2 tank, 4 DPS, and 2 healer group composite. Okay, so let me quickly touch on the DPS requirements for this fight. This encounter is split into 3 parts. A puzzle phase, an ad clearing phase, and the boss himself. Due to the nature of the encounter and the variety of ways your strategy during the puzzle and ad clearing phases can affect the total damage that needs to be done, I will not be doing a DPS analysis on these. Additionally, the first 2 parts do not have an enrage time, and thus the duration a group can potentially remain in each part is indefinite. So with that said, the following analysis represents the boss fight itself. As you can see here, the DPS required is very low when considered against the current DPS capabilities of all classes. Keep in mind, this does not account for tank and healer DPS, which would lower this requirement even more. Alright, so let's go ahead and discuss the mechanics for the fight. I'm going to deviate here a bit from my usual format due to the unique nature of this fight. So I'll be covering the mechanics and strategy for each phase together. So with that said, let's continue. As you enter the room, there is some preparation your raid will need to make before you start the fight. Before I cover what that preparation is, let me give you the general idea for phase 1. Inside of the room you'll see 3 opponents, the wealthy buyer and 2 bodyguards. Directly behind the wealthy buyer is an interface you'll need to interact with. If you move to the viewing window along the back of the room, you'll see 16 droids set out in a 4x4 grid pattern. These droid locations directly correspond to locations on the interface behind the wealthy buyer. There's also a terminal located here along the wall that can be used to port into the room down below and observe the droids directly. Okay, so now that you understand what you're looking at for phase 1, let's cover the mechanics and the strategy. The preparation I mentioned earlier directly relates to the droids. Each droid has an associated cost with it, denoted by this debuff, which will have either a 1 or 2 inside of it. The wealthy buyer has a buff that looks similar with a number 8 in it. What you'll be doing for phase 1 is acquiring coins from the wealthy buyer in order to purchase droids from down below. These droids will be removed from the ground floor once purchased and brought into the room to help you attack the wealthy buyer and his bodyguards. As you start the fight, the wealthy buyer will be immune to all damage. You must dispatch his bodyguards before you can attack him. The standard strategy here is to split your team into 2 and assign each team to one side of the room. Once both bodyguards are defeated, you'll be able to attack the wealthy buyer. At 50% or less, the wealthy buyer will leave the room, and 2 random group members will be granted a credit token. You will have 15 seconds to use these tokens before they are lost. These 2 members will need to remove the droids associated with your group's plan. I'll cover exactly how to determine what droids should be removed here shortly. After both credit tokens expire or are used, 1 bodyguard will emerge from each door on the far ends of the room. In addition, the wealthy buyer will randomly choose one of these doors and follow behind the bodyguard. You'll rinse and repeat the same procedure here. Kill the bodyguards, DPS down the wealthy buyer, gain 2 credit tokens, and purchase droids from the board. You'll rinse and repeat this 4 times. As the 4th set of bodyguards is defeated, the wealthy buyer will be killable. At the same time, the room will start to fill with poison gas, which will start to apply a damage over time debuff called contamination to all group members. At this point, you must kill the wealthy buyer as quickly as possible. Once the wealthy buyer has been defeated, the elevator located in the center of the room along the back of the wall will be accessible. You'll need to have all group members utilize this elevator, which will bring you to the ground floor and set you up for the start of phase 2. Alright, so let's discuss the general idea for phase 2, and then we'll cover mechanics and strategy. So phase 2 forces you to fight all the droids you did not purchase row by row. Simple enough, right? Well, depending on your group's strategy for removing droids during phase 1, this could set you up for success or failure. Let me explain why. As you engage the droids on the ground floor, all group members will gain a debuff called Package Deal. This essentially determines how powerful the droids are and how much damage your group will take from them. This debuff, however, is not related to all the droids, but only the assault and frontline droids. So what this all boils down to is that you do not want to have 2 assault droids, 2 frontline droids, or 1 of each in any row together. To better help explain this, I've set up an example and labeled each droid by name so you'll know what's what. You'll see that some droids have markers above them. This is a common practice used by raid groups to denote which droids your group has selected to be removed from the ground floor during Phase 1. For this example, take a moment, pause the video, and see if you can spot the issue with this setup. Okay, so did you find it? If you said this row here, then you're absolutely correct. Since this row would consist of 1 frontline and 1 assault, together, you would obtain 2 stacks of the Package Deal debuff, which is something you do not want. Alright, so now that you understand the setup to get up to this point, let's jump back into Phase 2. As you exit the elevator, ensure that all contamination debuffs are gone from all group members and that all members are healed to full. Once this has been accomplished, you'll want to use the panel on the wall directly to your right as you exit the elevator. This will start Phase 2 and the first row of droids. You will have 60 seconds per row regardless of the droids present or the amount present. Put simply, you'll defeat all droids to clear Phase 2 per row. However, each of the droids have their own notable mechanics, so let's go over those quickly. The frontline droid deals melee damage and will randomly aggro and leap to group members. The best way to deal with these is to have your entire group except the tanks stack on top of it to limit the probability of it leaping out of the group. Doing so will help allow melee DPS to maximize damage uptime. Assault droids are simple enough, as their damage output is a basic ranged attack. Recon droids randomly target group members and attack with an ability called Targeted Laser. Over time, this attack can brutalize DPS and healers. Artillery droids are similar to assault droids in that they attack with a simple ranged attack. However, their danger is in an ability called Ion Field. Ion Field drops a large red circle at the feet of their current target. Shortly after, the entire area is covered by an intense ion field that does a good amount of damage to any player standing in it. Alright, so now that you know what they do, let me explain our method for dealing with these. Our suggested priority for DPSing adds are Recon, Frontline, Assault, and finally Artillery. Tanks should always take Assault and Artillery droids. Keep in mind when tanking Artillery droids, do your best to keep the ion fields away from DPS, specifically melee DPS. In the event you have 2 Artillery droids and an Assault, have the group start on the Assault, and have the tanks taunt swap back and forth on it to help keep as much of the damage on the tanks as possible while they tank the Artillery droids. After the final 60-second wave expires, the boss will spawn into the room, initiating Phase 3. So Phase 3 is fairly simple. As the boss spawns, ensure that 1 tank picks him up. All DPS should immediately start DPSing the boss. Shortly after spawning, the boss will vanish for a few seconds and reappear in a random location. The boss's spawn location will be one of the 16 spots the droids used to stand in. Each time the boss reappears, you'll have to taunt him to gain aggro. Additionally, you'll have approximately 30 seconds to DPS him before he vanishes again. This will rinse and repeat until the boss is defeated. In Phase 3, each time the boss reappears, 2 ads will accompany him. 1 Underworld Arms Trader and 1 Shady Customer. The Shady Customer ad is the same as the numerous ones you've encountered throughout the operation in between bosses. The Underworld Arms Trader, however, has a special consideration. When the Arms Trader drops below 25% health, he will start casting a high damaging attack non-stop called Final Offer. The Arms Trader will also do a 4-second channeled AoE called Free Samples, which is denoted by the yellow circle that accompanies it. Both of these attacks can be and should be interrupted. The Arms Trader should immediately be picked up by the tank not currently tanking the boss. We like to have ranged DPS take care of the adds and melee DPS just stay on the boss. However, if you do not have an even group among ranged and melee players, just ensure you take care of the adds and do not let them pile up on you. You'll rinse and repeat these mechanics until the boss is defeated. The last thing I want to mention is that there are several debuffs and abilities that I've left out of this explanation among all 3 phases. The things that were left out because they pose no significant value to the fight in such a way that would require me to tell you about them as far as how to strategize to beat the fight. Alright, so now I want to take a moment to give you some specific tips and tricks you can use for this encounter to better help you get through it. First, droid rows correspond to the following orientation on the board interface in Phase 1. I see this get messed up a lot due to confusion, so I wanted to make sure that this was explained. Furthermore, 1 token droids are represented as blue, and 2 token droids are represented as orange on the interface. If a 2 token droid location is selected, it will turn red, denoting it still needs 1 more token to be fully purchased. Second, I want to show you a trick you can use to make this fight almost trivial during pre-planning, assuming you're lucky and or your group has the patience. Using various classes, the droid setup can be reset so that you can obtain a new board if the droid layout you're given is not to your liking. To do this, you simply need a ranged or a class capable of a ranged attack to stand up against the right side of the door, use an attack, and immediately duck out. This will cause the wealthy buyer and bodyguards to aggro and will reset when unable to reach you. Once the reset is done, the door will open and the board will have a new setup. You're always presented with 4 of each droid on a board of 16 available spots. The ideal setup here is to have 1 assault and 1 frontline in each row. When this is the case, you can completely ignore pre-planning on the droids and just remove all frontlines and recons, what we refer to as all blues, since all 1 credit token droids are blue on the interface board. However, the probability of acquiring this setup is 2.3% per reset, with no guarantee of when you'll get this configuration. Third, if you have 2 stacks of package deal, it is not necessarily an instant wipe, and it can be done. However, your entire group needs to be highly skilled and highly proficient with their class, their role, and the fight mechanics itself to pull it off. In the event you see 2 stacks, you immediately want to remove 1 of the frontline or assault droids ASAP. If you have 1 of each, stack and burn the frontline since it has a much lower health than the assault. Fourth, the artillery droid's ion field has a set pattern. Basically, you'll drop 3 and as the 3rd initiates, the 1st will disappear. This means as a tank you can drop the 1st, move, drop the 2nd, move, drop the 3rd, and then move back to the 1st location. By doing this, you can stack the radiuses of each circle and keep the affected area condensed, saving more room for DPS and healers to move around. Fifth, in Phase 3, a nice way to quickly get to the boss as a melee or tank is to stand in the center of the room, spin your camera angle, and just mash your leap button. By doing this, you'll instantly leap to the boss as he's coming out of stealth and be in position before he starts attacking. This, however, won't work well if the boss is inside of your leap range. Lastly, the enrage on Phase 3 is a non-issue. The fight is absolutely manageable beyond enrage as long as healers are focused on the tanks, and tanks properly use defensive cooldowns when needed. Additionally, any adds remaining or any adds spawning during enrage do not enrage themselves. So that's the fight, guys. I know that was a huge amount of information to take in, but this fight is really a simple fight once you've experienced all of the mechanics and you see the flow and pace of the fight for yourself. The thing I see messed up the most is the board interface. Make sure that if you have yet to get a coin to spend, you stand near the board to reduce the reaction time needed to make a selection. The coins have only 15 seconds to be used, so be in position early. So if this video helped you, consider giving us a like and subscribing. It definitely helps the channel out and it keeps us motivated to continue making content and guides applicable to the topics we receive requests on. Also, if you have any tips, tricks, or think of something I may have missed, go ahead and post those in the comment section below. As always, if you have any suggestions for new content or guides, you can contact us directly through hayate.net anytime. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and until next time, enjoy the fight.
You break it, you're dead. Even our huts won't touch some of my wares. Not even sure what this does. Let's find out. Been saving this for a special occasion. Like wombats in a trap. Plasma, ion, or carbonite? Why not all three? None of these babies an odd man tell. You like? Not even sure what this does. Let's find out. Hey, did that hurt? It should have. Not even sure what this does. Let's find out. Not even sure what this does. Let's find out. This does. Let's find out. Not even sure what this does. Let's find out. Hey, did that hurt? It should have. Not even sure what this does. Let's find out. Not even sure what this does. Let's find out. Found these babies in Odd Man's Hell. You like?
Time to show my clients how it's done. Doesn't matter. So plenty of this stuff to the others.